Okay, so before I start this video, I just wanted to do a bit of a disclaimer. I'm not a nutritionist, I'm not a dietitian, I'm not a doctor. I just graduated as an optometrist, and you know, we do learn a bit about the human body and all of that, but nowhere near enough. So basically what I'm saying is, if you wildly disagree with anything I'm saying, you know, research for yourself. I'm going to link some registered dietitians who I think have some really solid advice about nutrition and stuff below. But yeah, just wanted to give that disclaimer. Clarity is always good. Hello, so I hope everyone's had a good Christmas. New Year's is coming up, which is super exciting, and that's kind of why I'm filming this video. I haven't done anything like this, and this is the sort of thing that I'd usually write about, but I have so many thoughts about this topic specifically that I thought, let me try filming a video. So we'll see how this goes. If I hate it, then I might not post it. But anyway, let's get started. So basically I want to talk about New Year's resolutions, the diet industry, and all that shebang, because I feel like, especially because people overindulge so much around Christmas time, when New Year's hits, the pressure to get back on the wagon and get back on track is so huge. And it means a lot of people might go down a path that isn't great, and if this video means that someone doesn't go down that path, that would be really awesome. And the reason why this is so important to me, and the reason why I'm making a video about this, is because, as some people might know, and I've written about this a little bit in the past, is that I had an eating disorder for 2 years. And it started, as often does, with me just trying to get a bit healthier. But because there's so many misconceptions on the internet and so much complete and utter rubbish, it's so easy to fall down the wrong path. And the thing is, it's really easy to succumb to that pressure, especially when all you're seeing is heavily photoshopped models on magazines and Instagrammers. So I just want to give a bit of background to my story. So basically it all started when I was about 17. So this is the summer between the end of high school and the beginning of university. I've always been a bit chubby, although I actually look back on my photos now and I realize that at a lot of times I wasn't chubby at all. It's just more that I definitely wasn't skinny. And that's not really a bad thing, because when you think about it, A, being skinny is just a social construct, and B, not everyone can achieve that body type. Like me, for example, I could never achieve a body type like Heidi Klum, for example. It's just impossible. It's not how I'm built. But anyway, I felt like I needed to change something, so I did. I started going to the gym 7 days a week for an hour and a half, and then I'd walk home for about 20 minutes. On top of that, I had a job at McDonald's, which was just my job during school, and then it became my summer job, and then on top of that, my diet slowly became more and more restrictive. Now, I'm not saying that every single person who's going to go on a diet is going to have an eating disorder, but I'm also saying that it's something that we should be aware of. And it definitely was the path that I took. Like I said, I started off just wanting to be a little bit healthier, and then I ended up being really underweight for about 2 years of my life. So at the beginning it was really small stuff. So I cut out bread for a little while, and then I cut out pasta, and then I'd have smaller plates for smaller portion sizes, and then eventually it got so bad that I literally weighed how much cabbage I ate at one stage. And of course my weight dropped. Like, it's impossible for your weight to not drop when you work like an 8 to 4 shift, and then you go to the gym for an hour and a half and you eat almost nothing. So I lost weight. I lost a lot of weight. By the end of that summer, I was in the low 40s, and eventually when I went to university, my weight dropped to its lowest, which was 37 kgs, which is the only weight that I was underweight for my BMI, which is completely and utterly ridiculous. But why BMI is completely and utterly ridiculous is a topic for another day completely. But anyway, I lost a lot of weight, and you might be like, well, didn't you realize you were losing so much weight? The thing is, I did, but I didn't realize how I could stop it. Now, just to give you a bit of context, I was still exercising about an hour and a half every day, although that dropped to 1 hour 5 times a week instead of 7 times a week during uni, and I was still eating not very much. My portion sizes did increase when I went to university because I was on a meal plan, so I couldn't really decide what I wanted to eat as much, but I was still eating a really low amount of food and exercising way too much. And it was one of those things where it took a long time to realize, but what was actually wrong was basically my brain. I was literally skin and bone. Like, I'd go to the gym just to do some ab work, and I'd have bruises on my spine and bruises on my hips, even just from like lying down. It took a couple of counseling sessions for me to click and realize that I had a really terrible relationship with food. And then eventually I kind of realized that all I needed to do was eat and maybe slow down at the gym a little bit, which is what I did, and I gained weight. I gained a lot of weight in a really short period of time. I don't actually know how heavy I got at the end because I stopped weighing myself, which I actually think is a really good idea. I think if you're trying to gain weight, especially if you're recovering from an eating disorder, you do not need to weigh yourself. That's just extra pressure and extra stress on yourself that you don't need at a time when what you really need to be doing is healing. But I suspect the heaviest I got would be around 65 kgs, and then 2016 to about now is where I feel like I've kind of leveled out, figured out what I'm eating, figured out my exercise a bit more, and just found a more comfortable balance. Do I have a perfect relationship with food and exercise? Hell no. Do I have off days? Definitely. Are there days when I wake up and look at myself and I'm like, oh my god, why do you look like that? Of course. I think it's really hard not to when we live in the world that we do, with so much pressure about body image. But definitely I'm in a much better place than I was even a year ago, and definitely a better place than I was in 2014 when I was the lightest I've ever been, probably since I was a kid. Now, kind of the part 2 of this video is if you do actually want to get healthier. Now, I'm going to start off by saying there's nothing wrong with wanting to be healthier. There's nothing wrong with wanting to move more and eat a bit more veggies. Eating well and moving are basic needs for our body and our minds. But the main thing I would say is ask yourself why. Why do you want to be healthier? Are the things that you want to change actually going to make you healthier? Because health is such a huge term, and what we eat and how much we weigh is only a small part of it. Things that are equally as important is our social interactions, how much stress we have in our lives, how happy we are, how lonely we are. There is a study that basically says that being lonely is more likely to kill you than being overweight. Now, of course, this is correlation, not causation, but my point is other factors are also important in terms of our health. So I thought I'd just give 5 tips purely based on my experience. Number 1, don't go on a diet. Chances are if you go on a diet, you're going to feel really bad about yourself, you're not going to be happy, and the vast majority of people don't last on diets. I think that's something that everyone knows by now. But like I said, because we're coming up to New Year's and people feel a little bit guilty because they may have overindulged during Christmas, I think it's just a really important thing to start with. Don't go on keto. Don't become vegan for diet. I mean, I want you to be vegan, but don't be vegan just to lose weight. Don't go on a detox. Don't drink those rubbish teas. Don't buy a waist trainer. Don't do any of that stuff. It's a waste of time and a waste of your money and a waste of your energy. And if there's one thing you don't want to do, is you don't want to mess with your metabolism. And yo-yo dieting is definitely not great for your metabolism. The second thing I'd say is just eat more fruits and veggies. It sounds really simple, makes a lot of sense, but a lot of people forget to do it, especially vegetables, especially green vegetables. Now, I'm not saying I'm perfect by any stretch of the imagination. I consistently eat jars of peanut butter and ice cream, but berries and green vegetables are probably some of the best things on the planet, and definitely don't worry about how much you're eating when it comes to fruits and veggies. You can pretty much eat as much of those as possible and you'll be totally fine. Number 3, get active. Now, I do a bit of powerlifting. At the end of this year, I competed in a super amateur uni competition, which was so much fun. And last year I ran a half marathon, which was also super fun. Now, the thing I want to emphasize with this point is you really have to find what you enjoy. Now, my thing is I'm really uncoordinated. So in high school, I tried to play some sports, but I was completely terrible at it because I can't catch things, I can't throw things. And actually, I do have really bad stereopsis, which is 3D perception. Not terrible, but definitely like on the lower end of average, which might explain why I'm so bad at hand-eye coordination and anything to do with that. But my point is, don't do what your friend is doing, do what you want to do. If that's dancing, awesome. If that's running, do it. If you want to lift weights, go for it, especially if you're a girl. Who cares what the dudes at the gym think or do? Trust me, no one is looking at you. All the guys at the gym are actually just looking at themselves in the mirror. Just find something that you're going to be able to do consistently, find something that you are going to enjoy, and find something that is realistic for your life. I think a lot of people, especially in the whole new year, new me, go in so hard and just aren't realistic, and then they end up failing because when you tell yourself you're going to exercise 7 times a week or 6 times a week or whatever it is, if you actually don't have the time to exercise that much, you're not going to do it. It needs to fit into your lifestyle. Unless you're someone like me who becomes extremely obsessive with things like this, which is actually a really bad thing, you're not going to keep it up. I think it's better to walk 15 minutes twice a week than to tell yourself you're going to walk an hour every day and only do that for 2 weeks, because what's the point, right? Like we say in uni, it's the whole setting smart goals. And one of the things about setting a smart goal is that it has to be realistic. Number 4, don't worry about how much you weigh. Some people find weighing themselves really helpful. And I'm wary to say don't weigh yourself at all, because if you find it helpful, then cool, especially if you have a chronic condition. But I think especially if you're a young person, especially if you just want to be a little bit healthier, don't worry about what the number on the scale says. It is so misleading. So a good example is last year I got down to about 55 kgs when I was running and training for the half marathon. This year I'm closer to 60. So that's about 5 kgs in the space of a year, but I still fit my clothes exactly the same. Now I'm not saying all of that is muscle, because definitely all of that isn't muscle, but it also isn't a big deal. I'm doing a different sport. So yeah, it's really variable and it's really not the best measure for health. I would say don't have a scale at home. I very rarely weigh myself, and when I do, it's at the gym, and honestly it's not a big deal to me. If I stepped on the scale tomorrow and I was 65 kgs, I'd be totally fine with that. And definitely if you have an eating disorder, or if you feel like you have a complicated relationship with food, then just don't weigh yourself at all. Like I said, you don't need it, you just need to be gentle on yourself, and weight is such a poor measurement for any of this stuff anyway. If you actually wanted a better way to really know how well you're doing, waist circumference, waist to hip ratio, all of those things are way better and more important measures for health. But also, I would say don't worry about that. And the final thing I'd say, number 5, is if you're actually concerned about your health, if your cholesterol is not great, or you have diabetes in the family, go see a registered dietitian, because they know about food. They train for a really long time to know what they're talking about, and they really are the best people to give you proper, solid advice. There is a lot of rubbish on the internet. There's a lot of people just trying to make money, to be honest, and even though there's nothing wrong with buying an exercise plan or buying, bands from someone. I know when I started working out, I used to do the Tony Horton workouts, which were really awesome and were a really good gateway for me to get into exercising. But especially when it comes to food, I would err on the side of going to see a professional, and the best people you can see for this sort of thing are dietitians. And definitely don't go to anyone and don't follow any meal plans from someone who's asking you to eat less than, 1500 calories, or cut out fat, or cut out carbs, or do anything crazy like that, because like I said, for the vast majority of people, diets don't work. You're just going to rebound and you're going to gain a crap load of weight and feel really bad about yourself. So I hope that was helpful. I hope you got something from that. I mean, like I said at the start, the main reason why I decided to sit down and make this video is I feel like I have a lot to say and a lot of feelings about all of this, and weight and food and the pressure we put on it as a society is so complicated and so personal. I actually recently listened to a podcast by Anoni. I'll link it. She has a podcast called Adulting, and she did an episode about food and about dieting culture and all of that with someone who's actually a doctor, and he's really awesome. His Instagram handle is unfattening, I think. I'll also link that. And it just really got me thinking about health and weight in a much bigger sense. And it's, like, we have a huge body positive movement going right now, which is totally awesome, but I also sometimes just think, why do we care so much? Why do we care so much about how much we weigh and what we look? Which is very hypocritical of me, because I also care a lot about, what I look like. So it's difficult. It's definitely something that I am trying to be more and more aware of, and try and sit with myself and ask myself hard questions and just sit with difficult emotions, which is why at the very beginning I asked everyone to ask themselves, if you want to get healthier, like I said, health is such a huge term and encompasses so many more things. You could equally get healthier if you joined a book club, or started doing a new hobby that you love. That's why the first thing that I said was we should ask ourselves why. If we want to be healthier, why do we want to be healthier? And if we come up with a reason that we think is good and satisfactory, then awesome, let's go for it. But if our reason is because we want, a bigger butt, which is genetics, or if we want a thigh gap, which is again genetics, then maybe we need to rethink things. Yeah, and I guess more than anything, I feel like this video was to 18-year-old Yasmin. If 18-year-old Yasmin saw this, I would hope she wouldn't have gone down the road that she did, because even though I learnt a huge amount about myself, obviously I would not wish that anyone go through what I went through. But yeah, that's all for today. I hope everyone has a great New Year's. Bye.